Welcome back, everyone, to BBB Sharing. I'm Evie, Director of Ignite, sparked by BBB. We are in here in the Ignite podcast studio with our President and CEO, Barry Moore.
Thank you, Evie.
And a very special guest, Ravi Patel, is here to.
I am so excited.
You are
Go
excited.
ahead.
Barry told me, you told me this morning, you're like, oh, by the way, you have a podcast right after the
I
Spark
thought you
conversation.
4 days ago when
That's
I
right,
set
you
it
did
up
tell
when
me
I was
4 days
excited.
ago. That's right.
If Robbie's coming over the river to see us, that's a big day.
Yeah.
I want to learn from him.
So you did tell me 4 days ago. That's
I
right.
did.
It was another podcast, Wahida.
Yes,
You
yes,
guys will meet Wahida another day.
yes.
But Ravi Patel is here to talk about himself and really what he does locally in this community, and because you're a big influence, and how he got into what he does today. So all yours.
Yeah. Gosh, where do we start?
Big long story. I'm
I
sure.
know it's a long
Yeah,
story.
just tell us about yourself and where you grew up.
Yeah, so Ravi Patel, I'm the CEO of SINA Hospitality. So we're a local hotel and development or hotel management and development company. Um, I grew up mostly in Richmond. So I was born in Cincinnati. My dad was a mechanical engineer with General Electric. And with General Electric, you had to keep moving to get promoted. So we went from Cincinnati to Erie, Pennsylvania, and then we moved here in 1997. So I spent the better part of my adult life here in Richmond. So local guy, Chesterfield County, went to Thomasdale High School, went to Virginia Commonwealth University, got a bachelor's degree, and then I moved away from Richmond for a year to Atlanta. Didn't like it. It was very expensive.
Yeah.
And then I came back here and I started SINA Hospitality in 2012. Yeah.
Your properties, and Evie doesn't know this, but I met you through the chamber, the Chesterfield Chamber of Commerce, and probably what's the other one called? Biz Sense with where what's her name? Iris.
Oh yeah, BizWorks.
Yeah, BizWorks.
Yeah.
I never get it right. I'm sorry, Iris. But I think I might even met you through that. And anyway, so you reach out and you get involved in the community. You don't have to do that.
Right.
Your job is to sell bedrooms for one night at a time. And why do you get involved? Why do you reach out and get involved in the community like that?
I think when you look at a lot of hotel organizations in Richmond and you read about the articles, you only read about them building things, right? Which in itself is significant because it's hard to do, like build hotels and real estate. But that shouldn't be the only thing that these companies can do. And so like for me, coming from a background of IT and working in corporate America, I started to look at these companies and I'm like, I don't want to be like that. I want to be like all over the place and do a bunch of different things. So, we've had our logo on the side of NASCAR, supporting NASCAR drivers. We've, recently talked about rebuilding the Chesterfield County Food Bank. And so for me, it's important to be part of the community because people need to know what our company is about. They don't necessarily need to know my whole life story. Right. So even during COVID, we didn't lay anybody off. We kept all of our hotels open. We took a 50% loss across the portfolio, but that was big in the community because not a lot of hotel companies did that. So, somebody like me, I could probably go sit on the board with the governor or something, but that's not meaningful to me. And it's no disrespect because people that do that, that's good for them. But I find my time better spent supporting the local community.
What have you noticed about employment in this area? Because running hotels is not easy. I can only imagine keeping employees to run hotels. Because reception is 24/7, right?
Yeah.
What is it? What have you found? What are some hardships keeping employees in that role, and what in any of the roles really? And what are some qualities that people have?
The labor pool is really tough in Virginia in general. And I don't quite understand why, but it seems like it's very hard to motivate people because if you go to Wawa or Sheets, it's all plastered over the wall like, hey, $18 to $20 an hour, come and apply. And we're looking at it on our margins like, man, we can't pay that. I mean, we're topping out at $15, $16 an hour.
Like us, yeah.
And so we try to do a different approach where it's more like family oriented, where it's like, okay, we're going to have a Christmas party, but we want you to bring your family. right? Don't have the constraints of having to babysitter. We don't, if you're going to bring your children, we just won't have alcohol. It's a very simple trade-off, right? So trying to make it more family focused so people understand that maybe I'm not making as much money as I perceive to be good, but I have a stable job.
Actually, now that you say that, it makes sense because I remember I used to tell Barry when I first started this job, I was like, my dad keeps telling me to quit. And he was like, no, it gets better, it gets better. And I believed him because I could feel it when I accepted the role that I was accepting more than just a job. I was accepting a community, I was accepting a greater purpose, and I was accepting people that share the same values in a business that I share. And it's nice knowing that I come to work and I have that sense of stability, like you said, and that sense of family values at work.
Mhm.
It's really nice to have that. I think you hit it right, the nail on the head. It's better to have those qualities in a job than to have how much you make. 'Cause I've had jobs where I make good money and it's not good.
Yeah, because it's stressful. You don't feel like you're valued. You feel like you're a number. And that's just not a place that anybody should ever have to be at. I mean, there's so many people, so many Americans that feel that way. And it's like, that is not, we have grown to almost 40 hotels, and you can't grow to be that size without doing these types of things. So,
Yeah, I can remember when we talked about that, and her dad's in the restaurant business, hardworking man. Met him, he's just a great guy up in Harrisonburg. And I can remember talking to Evie, and I remember her mentioning her dad, and yeah, she could have gone elsewhere and made a lot more money, a lot more. We're a nonprofit. We spend 1.6 million, we make 1.5. So talk about, we're not going to bring up what we talked about a while ago, but we're a nonprofit. So every month, my job is to get right sided up that I bring in 1.8, spend 1.6. But I remember telling Evie, it's going to be a commitment. We're going to take a piece of silly putty or clay, Play-Doh. You guys are too young, both of you guys, to know what it is, but I play with Play-Doh, and you can make from a ball of nothing. Evie, this is you. When you leave here, your fingerprints, your DNA are all over this. If it fails, then I had bad vision. If it succeeds, you did everything that I thought you should do plus, because you got to make it work, not me. If I could do it, I wouldn't hire her, right? But I needed a partner. And I think that's where, do you run your hotels like that? In a way, it sounds like you do, kind of, sort of, and it's difficult. You got so many different roles happening in a hotel, and you almost want them to be owners. But you're not there. You can't be at 40 locations.
right.
You're talented, but not that good.
Right. And our general managers, we always tell them, like, you're a direct reflection of the executives of this company. And so,
Yes.
if you don't treat your employees properly, we will find out, and there will be consequences for that. And there have been. We've terminated managers simply for that reason of they don't fit our culture and they cut corners, and we don't do that. So our hotels are some of the best performing hotels in their markets. So we take that very seriously.
If I could ask, is on hotels to be stellar, to be a property that's got to have, like, I want raving fans. If you're an accredited business, we're going to talk about Joe Duran a little bit at Wabash in a second. He's an accredited business. I want every accredited business to be raving fans of this brand. When I started in 2022 in January, that wasn't the case. Today, 2.5 years later, that's what I'm still beating in people's heads, and we're getting closer, but we got a long way. What makes people raving fans of your property? If I stay there, what are 3 things that are priorities during my experience?
Sure. I think one would be level of staff service, right? You need to feel welcomed when you come in. Cleanliness of the hotel, right? And then just the age of the hotel. People, if you don't have a renovated property or you don't keep up with your property, the customer's never coming back. You have one chance to make it right. And hotels are a dime a dozen. So if you screw up, that's it. You don't get a second chance in our business. So
I have to agree because I actually convinced my sister and I convinced our dad to renovate the restaurant. He owned 2 restaurants in Harrisonburg. The one he ended up closing down and selling the property to the city, and the other one he kept, the smaller one. But the smaller one was like old. And I told my dad right after COVID, I was like, you need, like, you have to up your game.
Mhm.
Time is changing, you're not changing with it, you're gonna get left behind. I don't care if you've been in business for 30 years. And so finally he bit the bullet and he did it, and everybody talks about it, like, so beautiful. It looks so nice. We loved coming here, but there just wasn't enough space ever, and it just felt old.
Mhm.
And now they get to come into a beautiful building and they get to have a new experience while still having those family values in the restaurant and still feeling like they're coming to that good old local place that their
Yeah.
dad used to bring them to growing up.
Yeah, and great food,
And great food.
quality, and great service, because it really is.
Yeah.
I think at the hotels, one of the places, I don't know if you ever think about this, and I'm sure you think about everything. One of the things I look at, I'm a weirdo, the elevator. I want to see if the elevator's clean
No,
or
you're
not.
not a weirdo. I look at elevators too, but not like, because
Like,
I'm used
they
to going
better
to
be clean.
Greece.
Yeah,
When it's like not, that's not an option half the time.
you gotta walk the
Okay.
steps.
Sure,
Yeah, 5
It's like
suitcases.
India,
Yeah, you gotta carry up 5 bags on it. Yeah, your wife's packed everything. I can only imagine the way you and your family back up. But elevators are it. So let's talk about the Wabash. Talk about the experience with your marketing company, if you don't mind.
Sure.
That's why you're
So,
here. So
yeah.
go
When
ahead.
I started with Chesterfield Chamber, we sponsored the luncheon during COVID for 2 years. And up until that point, I'd really kept my head down and I had done everything on my own, including the marketing piece. And I never reached out to anybody. And I met Joe at a luncheon, and Joe was like, if you ever feel like you need some help, just call me. It's very no pressure. And I love that about Joe. He's a wonderful guy. And I remember sending him my marketing material that I had made, and I'm like, I understand that I'm not the most creative person. You're allowed to take this and just rip it apart and give me something that's going to be beautiful, because that's not what this is. And it was him and Shelley Perkins, and they were both like, it's good that you can call your child ugly. We appreciate it. And from there, we've had a wonderful relationship, and they've taken apart everything that I've had and redone it. Most recently, like on LinkedIn, we were talking about the business cards. That was a big change. I pushed Logan off for a long time because I'm like, I don't want to change the colors. I don't want to change the identity of something that's really the last thing that I've created, you know. And finally, I asked my wife. I said, look at this and tell me what you think. And she goes, it's probably time for a change. You just need to do it. So then I did it. But
And I hope that, I am hoping that this podcast with the BBB Sharing leads you into, with Joe, whether it's doing it here or doing it anywhere. I don't know. I'd love you to use our studio, but really telling your story as an entrepreneur, because there are some big hotel groups, and believe it or not, none of you are really out there that are accredited, or some of them won't even pass. I mean, when you do an application, we're not the chamber. You don't become a member. You get accredited, and we do research, and a couple of these big players out there. I will tell you, gatekeepers are hurting their business. I rent hotel rooms sometimes. I send people into town, or I bring people, and you better believe the people that I've called and I want to just talk to them as a nonprofit, they shut me down. You're at least sitting here, right? I give you credit. I bet you before you're approachable. Some of these other players are not. And what I'm in fear of in Enrico, Richmond, Chesterfield, Hanover, Farmville, wherever, Colonial Heights, is that if we don't protect our brand for tourism, you can build something and see it fall quickly. If crime doesn't get under control, we're in trouble. You talk to a guy from New Jersey, Pittsburgh, Richmond, Nashville, back to Richmond. I've lived around, right? And I love, the chambers are wonderful. They keep doing these events. We charge money, the black tie events, cocktail parties. We're wasting time. We don't have time, because there are people leveraged to the hilt. And I see one out of five people don't have credit cards anymore. They're Capital One, all their accounts are through the roof. Capital One's an accredited business. They manage an impeccable company. They offer us financing and everything, but their complaints are from people, they don't want to pay their bill anymore. Our protocol of consumers. How many people go to your front desk and say, after I stayed, the mattress wasn't comfortable?
Chargebacks are a real thing in our business. On average, a chargeback, we're probably paying 20 to 30,000 at each hotel. We're losing that revenue.
Correct.
Right? and there's nothing, you can fight it, but you don't win it all the
No.
time. And it's just, now you have to write it in your budget to
Correct.
account to lose that money.
We call it
Yeah.
goodwill in the car business. And if we sold cars, we knew we put a certain amount of money in account every single month. And the goal was to obviously spend as least as possible, but you don't want to disappoint the company, the customer. You want to empower the employee to take care of things. And that's what hotels do too. You got an amazing business, hotel business. It's something I tried to apply for. I couldn't get hired
Boy,
back in the 80s.
I don't think I've appreciated a hotel more than I have after coming back from my trip. Airbnbs are not it in foreign
Yeah.
countries.
No, I
I'm not a
agree.
fan.
Yeah, my daughter, but
But
it's
Barry's right though. I mean, not all hotel companies are created equal. So I think, to kind of answer your question, maybe, some hotel companies are generational hotel companies where the father starts it,
yes,
the grandson takes over, and it gets to be a really big company, but there's no personal touch with the employees.
Yeah.
See, like for me, because I worked in IT, I've been on the other side of the table. So I know what it's like to work for somebody. I know what it's like to be laid off of a job or, not having a job for a period of time. That's scary, right? And so I think the difference is I look at it from both sides. And like I built my business from the ground up, from one to now almost 40. Now, I had the help of my family, right? They were behind me and they supported me. But without them, I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't be able to do what I do. And I think that's what a lot of people they miss that because my dad was in the hotel business from 97 to like 2008, 2009. And he built a lot of hotels too, and he did his thing. And then in 2012, we decided that we were going to scrap that company and do something completely new. And we did it together, and we didn't know if it was going to work. And so we don't ever take that for granted.
Right.
We look at it and say,
Right.
hey, we're going to continue to build and give opportunities to our employees, but we're not going to go saturate markets. Like if it doesn't make sense, we don't have this ego that says we have to have this many hotels. We don't care about that. I could walk away today and I wouldn't care, but that's how we approach it. And I think that's really the difference between us and literally any other company I can think of. So,
yeah. And to follow up on that, so the tourism and everything, so the Greater Richmond Partnership, the chambers, we're all pounding our chest that we get this building built, that building built, we're attracting, and very few business owners and those organizations that I spent, they don't even talk with me, which is amazing. We're all nonprofits and they don't even, I'm the solution. I don't get anything out of it. I want to build this community to grow and stabilize. We have Lego coming. It is going to be dramatically different. These are a European company, right? That have a totally different culture. They are politically correct. They are they're different than what Chesterfield County is. We better not try to hurt them. They're employees. We don't want to rape and pillage them to get greed in the way of doing business the right way, or they're leaving. They don't need us, and we need them, right? And this beautiful building, but we still hear every single month. I go to these lunches, I watch online. All we do is yak about what we're going to do better because we got another company to move here. But I don't hear anybody talking like you're talking. And again, I hope you get accredited and we get other companies. But that's what we want to shine in the country, the United States, Canada, that you're a Better Business Bureau and you got a profile with us and you got a 5-star rating. Google, you can pay. Google, you can go in your hotel, put up fake reviews. If I'm your competitor, I can ruin you.
Yeah.
You know that. And call Google and just let me know how you get somebody on the telephone because they don't take calls.
Right.
The BBB, you just met our staff. We work for you. We work for the consumer and the accredited business. Tourism is critical. We have got to have a home, like some kind of marker saying you're an A+ rated or a satisfactory business owner that's accredited. So I hope we continue with that. We got a great community. It's great seeing somebody locally grow up here, telling your story. I know there's a bigger story out there, and I keep talking too much, but I'm excited because I'm your biggest fan in some ways, and you don't even know that. You don't even know who I am. But I know this, that Chesterfield County, Joe Casey, Garrett Hart, they are working their tails off. They really are. Enrico, Anthony, they
Mhm.
really are doing a good job, and they're giving it. But we have, as business owners, the opportunity and the responsibility to do things what's right. Stop wasting time with things that are useless, and let's help people.
Mhm.
So, anything else you want to finish up with?
No, I mean, I think this has been good, and Barry's right. There's definitely a larger story, and look forward to coming back and sharing that story because there's, we could be here for a couple hours.
I would love to have you come back and talk
Yeah.
about your story. Really, the whole hotel business fascinates me, and I'd really love to learn more about how you even got to where you are today, because I know there's a bigger story behind all of it.
Yeah,
But family does have a lot to do with it. I have to
Yeah.
agree.
and you know that.
Yeah, family
That's
for me is a big deal, and family businesses I know well, and growing up in it. But thank you for
You
coming.
know what? I'm sorry to cut you off one more time because I want to say this. Entrepreneur, talked about father-son team. Car business wise, it's usually first generation started in 1902. And I've worked for a lot of people up in New
Mhm.
Jersey and only one here, but we go down the line and usually it's the second, third generation. They just hand grenade it. They don't,
Mhm.
they're so egotistical, greedy. They never worked their way up.
Mhm.
And sitting here last week was Tom Leonard. Tom Leonard's
Oh yeah,
market.
Tom Leonard. Yeah, yeah.
He sat right here. Man, we like him and you. We could go with the two of you. We could do a 5 hour podcast. But we'd have to break it up and say because nobody would listen. We would get a bad score, right? We get the watermelons or tomato score, no pun intended for Tom. Do you know he sat here, he told about father, son, and the customer's always right. The next day I find out TJ, his son, is now the president.
Mhm.
I didn't know that right in front of me. And he's an amazing guy. Like you, he's not accredited. I hope he does get accredited someday. People are successful. They're not sure what I'm saying, but unless they listen, then they say, aha, I got it, Barry. But Tom Leonard was incredible. So imagine doing the two of them.
Oh, that
And
would be
maybe
a
your
great
dad,
podcast.
maybe your dad
Damn.
too.
It's
Yeah.
the family business is the hardest dynamic of a
It's
business
hard.
that because you don't always agree. You have good days and you have bad days. It's like, you know, you can't fire them. I
Right.
mean, you can, but
My
I've worked
dad,
for a couple of them.
my dad had told my brother, he looked at my brother and he was like, you need to go work for somebody else.
Yeah.
My sister hasn't worked for anyone else. She graduated from George Mason and then went right into the restaurant, and she manages everything. Mind you, she tells me every day that she's gonna quit and start her own business. Okay. But my brother went and worked for someone else, so he knows now. He told me actually last night, he said, I'm done in January. I'm gonna put my 2 weeks in. He said, I learned what I needed to learn. It's time for me to go back home and start growing.
That's actually it's the best piece of advice that I think anybody's ever given me because when I was gonna go to college, I had done like the dual enrollment at what was John Tyler back
Yeah,
then.
yeah.
And
Right.
I said, I don't want to go to college. Like it's just not I don't want to do that. And I remember sitting in my kitchen and my dad didn't say anything and my mom was sitting there and she was like, I need you to go to college because you need to learn what it's like to work for somebody else. Because if you don't understand that fundamental concept, you will never be successful.
Yeah.
And I mean, I see it from both sides. In the moment, I didn't like that answer. You know, Now I appreciate that a lot more than, most people will realize, but that was good advice, and it's just, you're right. Sometimes you have to be able to be on both sides of the table.
Yeah.
So,
100%. Well, thank you again, Robbie, for
Yeah.
coming in. Barry, thank you. Always
Thank
love
you.
it when you join me in the podcast
Thank you,
studio.
Abby.
Everyone that's watching on YouTube, please make sure to like, share, subscribe, and comment down below. Our YouTube channel is BBB Central VA. And if you're listening on Spotify, BBB Sharing, make sure to give us a follow. Thank you.